I made a video a few years ago now talking about my experience as a guy in his 30s going through loneliness. And to date, that video has had a lot of views. I think at the time of making this video, it's like 375,000 views, which is mad considering it was the first ever video that I posted. Um, Nothing happened with that video for a couple of years and then it just exploded. And I guess the algorithm picked it up or whatever, but I think more importantly than ever, it just goes to show that so many of us are feeling loneliness and disconnected. And it's strange because it's completely at odds with what I see in the world. I see an awful lot of people that seem on the surface to be well connected, to have lots of friends. You know, you only got to go on your Instagram feed or your Facebook feed, and it seems like everyone is surrounded by friends. But the popularity of that video says differently to me. And it's been a few years since I made that video, and I've had a lot of time to think, I've had a lot of time to grow, and I've had a lot of time to work on my social life. And I feel like I've got some wisdom and some authority to share the lesson that I have learned, because there is one particular thing, one particular word, one particular skill that we all innately have as human beings that I think we have just lost over the years. And I think that is at the absolute root of this huge wave, this epidemic of loneliness, and particularly loneliness among men. And maybe men of my age, I don't know. Maybe there's younger guys that watch these videos in their early 20s that experience the same level of loneliness. I don't know, but it's certainly a big problem for guys that I would say are in their kind of mid-20s upwards. So, what is this thing? What is this one word that I believe is the cause of so much of our loneliness? It is one really simple word. It's connection. I think we have over the years lost the ability to connect. What caused me to create this video was this morning I was driving to where I normally go for a run, and I'll normally listen to music or maybe a podcast, but I want to get into coaching. So I'm trying at the moment to absorb as much material and learn as much as I can and practice as much as I can this art of coaching. And so I decided to listen to this ebook. I'm showing my age there. It was an audiobook. But anyway, what I found is that my brain just kept drifting every like 5 minutes. I realized that I hadn't listened to the last 5 minutes and I would have to rewind. And when I really thought about that, I don't struggle to engage with podcasts if I find the topic interesting, and I don't struggle to engage with music. So why was this audiobook difficult for me to listen to? And I realized it was actually quite simple. This guy was reading from a script. And so what he was saying was not in the moment. It wasn't genuine in a way. He had curated these words, he had written them down, he had edited them so that they were readable. But that content doesn't come across as genuine and is much harder to feed to someone in an audio form. And so when you're reading from a script, it often comes across as false, unless you're a professional actor. And I'm not, and the vast majority of people aren't. And then I thought about my YouTube feed, and so much of my stuff on YouTube is now videos like this. And I think about the popularity of that first video that I made. And obviously trying to grow this YouTube channel, there is so much advice out there from professional YouTubers that tell you to do this and to do that and to cut out, all of the waffle and to change the scenes and to put music in the background and put subtitles in and zooms and cuts and all this shit, and it's all in an effort to engage you. And I realized that, like, I don't want to make content like that. You know, I don't care if I don't get more than the amount of subscribers that I've got right now, as long as the people that are watching this content connect with me personally. And I think the whole world is starting to wake up to this. You know, people don't want more entertainment. They don't want more false, flashy, shiny objects and videos that are designed to grab your attention. People are seeking more genuine, from the heart connection, because they are lacking connection themselves and they want to feel that from other people. They want to feel genuineness. And so it really humbled me when that video took off and I realized just how many people were in exactly the same boat. And that started my whole journey on what I thought at the time was social anxiety, but actually at the core of it was just a desire to connect to people and an inability to do that, a lack of knowledge on how to do that. And that led me to the next part of this journey, which was communication. I thought that actually maybe if I could work on my communication skills, that I would be able to get more friends. I thought that was the goal. My goal was to work on my communication skills in order to get more friends. And so this was kind of a kill two birds with one stone thing, because my communication skills were not only important to improve my social life, but I was also working in sales at the time. So obviously communication is a very vital aspect of that. And so I started to fill my brain with all this knowledge on communication, and I subscribed to all these channels about how to change your body language and the things you say. I researched things like NLP, listened to audiobooks, podcasts. And I guess it did help in a way. What I learned is to manipulate. And communication of any kind is always manipulation to a certain extent, but certainly in a sales environment, if you had invited me to come into your home, I was communicating with you because I had a motive. And so much of the communication material that is out there is teaching you how to communicate, not to connect with people, but to get what you want from them. And I think that is actually a really important distinction, because when that dawned on me, I realized that actually what I really wanted to get from this person, what I really wanted to feel from this person, was connection. And so communication was helpful, but it wasn't the most important aspect of feeling connected to someone. One thing that I realized in my social anxiety journey was that the more time I had to think about an event that was coming up or a situation in which I would need to speak to a group of people or anything that would trigger my social anxiety, the more time I had to think about that, the worse the anxiety was. And often, if I was spontaneously placed in a situation where I had to communicate with people, I may have been out and bumped into a couple of old friends or whatever, that actually I didn't struggle at all. And it was only after like a certain amount of talking to them and going back into my own head and thinking about things that my social anxiety got worse. And so what I realized was my communication skills weren't the problem. And I think for a vast majority of people, communication is not a problem. The real problem is vulnerability, is our fear and unwillingness to share not only the best parts of ourselves, but also the worst to people. And what I've learned is that when you learn to share your vulnerabilities, the things that are not so nice about you, the things that you are scared to show people, the more you're prepared to open up and to do that to people, the more they feel safe to do the same to you. And if two people are able to drop their walls, to drop their egos, and to be vulnerable with each other, that is the space in which connection can happen. I used to struggle so hard to control everything about my life that I thought would make me feel better. So if I was anxious and depressed, I thought, okay, I need to control my sleep. I need to make sure I'm getting 8 hours of sleep a day. I need to take these vitamins and these supplements. I need to exercise this many times a week. Um, I tried to control so many parameters that scientifically and statistically are linked to lower levels of depression and anxiety. And all of these things certainly did help. But one thing that dawned on me is that when I was younger, my early 20s, there was a big group of us, social group. This is before a lot of the guys ended up getting married off and having kids and starting careers, and we just had a lot more free time. And so every year, we would go to the same campsite on my birthday, and there'd be, I don't know, anywhere between 10 and 20 of us. And we would drink, we would smoke, we would stay up late, we would be sleeping in a tent on a hard floor, waking up freezing cold. And after those weekends, I would feel great. I'd have this like glow about me for an entire week. And so it couldn't have been all of these parameters that I was trying to control. It couldn't have been my sleep, my diet, and all the rest of it, because those things didn't really make me feel a huge amount better. And when I look back, I was doing the opposite, the polar opposite of all of these things, and feeling great at the end of the weekend. And the only difference there between those two things is that that weekend I felt real connection with people, and that sense of connection was what lit me up. It's what made me feel good. And I think that is just what we need more of in this world. We need more connection. We don't need more money. We don't need more travel. We don't need more things. We don't need more games, more entertainment. All of those things are taking us away from what is such a fundamentally important thing. You know, going back to loneliness, I read this statistic somewhere that like loneliness, being lonely was worse for your health than smoking 20 cigarettes a day. And that's fucking crazy if you really think about it, because we all know how bad smoking is for us. But the fact that you can live a really healthy life, but if you're feeling lonely, you'd be just as bad as someone who was smoking 20 a day. Like that fact blew my mind. And so much of what I say on this channel always comes back to like our early days of humanity, because that is where we come from. We haven't really evolved much since we were cavemen on this earth. And the reason why we were able to thrive and to really mold this world to suit our needs, you know, we don't really have any major, if you live in a Western country, we don't really have any major concerns. Most of us have clothes and have a roof over our head, and we have running water, and we have heated homes. And I appreciate that's not the same for everyone, but most of us have those privileges. But we didn't back in the early days. And the only reason we were able to survive is because we created tribes, because we had a group of people who all had each other's backs. And we were able to communicate with those people to build these tribes. And that took an awful lot of trust. And you can't trust someone unless there is a connection there. Let's say you live in a world where a saber-toothed tiger is very likely to come into your cave and drag you away in the middle of the night and eat you. And so a couple of people from your tribe are going to have to be on watch. And are you really going to feel comfortable going to sleep at night if you don't trust the people that are watching your back? And I think that is exactly where we find ourselves now, is we've built a world that is so comfortable for us that we don't need to communicate anymore, and we don't need to connect like we used to. We may not need to do it to survive, but that part of our brain is still very much in existence. And if we don't have that sense of connection, we still feel that same level of threat, and therefore maybe depression and anxiety, as our caveman ancestor would have done if he were cast out of the tribe and had to wander the plains on his own. It is life-threatening. Whether you realize it consciously or not, your brain thinks you're in danger if you don't have connection. And that is why I think, just beyond anything else, connection is one of the most fundamental and important things that we can have. And the only way we can get better at connecting with people is by becoming more vulnerable. And I think I owe a lot, especially at the moment. I've made a huge amount of progress in terms of my connections, and I've made new friends. And I owe a lot of that to a men's group that I go to. And the reason why I think a men's group is so good is because it's a safe space. It's a place where you know that you can open up and talk about the worst parts of you to a group of guys who you know are all going through the same shit and who don't judge you for being you. And the more you can get comfortable with being vulnerable and opening up, the more you realize that it doesn't really hurt you to be vulnerable. And the payoff for being vulnerable is the ability or the opportunity to connect more. And that connection is worth far more than the potential embarrassment that you may experience by being vulnerable. Or maybe even the potential hurt that you might experience. You know, it's not nice to be open and vulnerable to someone and have them reject you in some way. Like, I do understand that, which is why it's important that you have to be selective about who you're vulnerable around. But I think we all have an instinct, you know, we all have an instinct that we meet people in life that we think, yeah, that person would be nice to connect with. You know, I'd like for that person to be my friend. And so we try and act a certain way in order to try and manipulate them into being our friend and to liking us. And actually, the only way you're really going to feel satisfied is by being vulnerable to that person. And one of two things are going to happen. Either that person is going to not like what you have to give them. They're not going to like those vulnerable parts of you, and they're going to reject you. In which case, that's no great loss, because the alternative is to spend the rest of your friendship trying to hold up this act. Or the other alternative, the other option that could happen, is this person loves the fact that you've been vulnerable, and they choose to do the same to you. And in that process, the two of you form a connection. And I think that is why, you know, for families, you know, a lot of people, myself included, family is so important, because you grow up with these people. You see them so often that you can't wear these masks. You can't be false around these people, because they're your loved ones, and they see you in your best times and your worst times. And so you naturally form connections with them. You can't help but form connections with them. So yeah, if you're struggling with loneliness, realize that there's nothing really you can do to improve your chances of making friends by trying to make yourself better in some way, trying to make yourself a better candidate for friendship. The most important thing that you need to work on is being vulnerable, and being vulnerable in order to foster connection. And a place I would recommend doing that, if you have one in your area, or even if you have to commute to get to one, is a men's group. And if you don't have a men's group in your area, then start one. You know, go on meetup.com, or you know, leave a comment below. Maybe there's other guys in this community that we've already got here that want that level of the connection. And you know, maybe in the future with this channel, I'll start some kind of online group that will help guys to connect with each other more, because I think it's just such a fundamental thing. You know, this men's group, I have been going for months now, but maybe even nearly a year. And I have seen guys walk in through those doors and their body language is just like, they're so shut down. They don't want to speak to anyone. They struggle to make eye contact. And I've seen them through this process of just slowly opening up and seeing other guys being vulnerable as well, and being more vulnerable with other people. I've seen there literally this weight taken off them, to realize that they don't have to carry around this shame, and that people will accept them for who they are, and those that don't aren't worth your time anyway. It's such a magical thing to see someone that feels so hopeless in life and so disconnected and so lonely change in the space of months, just by learning how to be vulnerable and to connect with people. I have a habit of rambling in these videos, but I'm hoping I kind of kept this on track. It's not about communication. It's not about improving yourself in some way. It's about connection. And connection is one of the most fundamental skills that is not optional. You know, it may feel optional sometimes, and it's not imperative to your survival, but if you really want to thrive in this world, if you really want to experience happiness and joy, you need real, true connection. I hope this video has got you thinking in some way. I hope it's helped you in some way. And if you're experiencing loneliness, I know what it feels like, because I was there. You know, you've only got to watch that first video. I was there, and I know how soul destroying it is to feel loneliness. But I'm telling you that there is a way out, and it's not as difficult as you think it is. It's scary as shit. There's no denying that. It's not easy to start being vulnerable, but I'm telling you there is a way through this. And yeah, I hope this video has been helpful. I did mention earlier that I have started coaching. It's something that I've actually done for a couple months with a few guys already, and had really good results. So if you like the lens through which I see the world, if you want me to cast that lens on your world, maybe you want someone that's just got your back, you know, there's someone, if you want me to be your cheerleader, I'm not going to wear the uniform, but if you want me to be your cheerleader and to help you figure a way through this loneliness, then you can actually work with me on a one-to-one basis. And if that's something that interests you, you can apply. There's a link in the description below. There's also a newsletter that I started as well. The link is in the same place, so you can sign up for that. Beyond anything, I just want to help. I just want to help people feel more connected and to not feel lonely anymore, because it's not a good place to be, and it's not too difficult to get out of it. So I hope this video helped. Let me know in the comments below if loneliness is something that's affected you, if it's still affecting you, if the advice in this video was helpful. Knowing that just one person has watched this video and it's been helpful to them is really the only motivation I need to keep making these videos. So let me know in the comments below. I'll see you in the next video.